So the next game up is Balloon Fight, released in November of 1984. It's a Sakamoto and Iwata game primarily, but the music was done by Tanaka. When people look back at this game, I think resources online would point to it being more of an Iwata attributed project. And I think part of that's because, you know, he passed away and the controls, really anything to do with the programming, the game is just so razor sharp, extremely tight controlling, extremely fun to play, especially when you compare it to a few of the other titles, so a few of the other earlier titles. Balloon Fight is kind of immediately enjoyable. The controls are so tight, you pick it up and it feels very natural. You can hold down the B button, I believe, to continuously flap your arms. The way that Balloon Fight works, you've got two balloons attached to your helmet, you flap around, and you try and pop the balloons on your enemies' heads. So the way this works, there's three main modes. The first mode is single player. Single player, there are a variety of platforms. There is usually water under the bridge. You are flying around, popping these guys. They're balloons from the top, trying not to get popped yourself. You're also avoiding the lightning strikes that can come from the clouds. And if you fly too close to the water, there is a fish that can come out of the water and grab you. Those are the absolute basics of the game. But I'm more interested in how it feels to play. And the first mode, it feels a little easy at first. It feels like it doesn't really grab you too much. You feel like almost bored with the first few levels, but it spices things up by adding more lightning as you go through. The main way you'll probably die after getting a little more skill at the game is by the lightning hitting you or striking you. It can kill you in one hit, whereas it takes 2 hits really to pop both of your balloons. So 2-player kind of goes the same as single player. But at first, since there is friendly fire, it seems like it's a little bit of a hindrance. Like it seems like, I don't know, kind of a pain to play and like something you would only do if you had someone over and you both wanted to play at the same time or you were just looking for a game like that. But if you establish a few ground rules, in my case, it was each player stays to the side, like one respective side of the screen, the side that they start on, and you try as best as you can to not go over, then it actually starts to feel like you can get a lot further in the game. Just because when you're avoiding the electricity at the end, it moves so much faster than you do, and it's so hard to kind of make those mid-air adjustments when it's zooming at angles. Most things in Balloon Fight have more predictable trajectories, but when you're trying to keep track of the enemies and make sure they're not popping you, you're trying to pop them, you're trying to get them as they fall, it can just be a lot. And so the lightning coming in from the side is usually what's going to take you out. The bonus stages are fun. It would have been kind of cool if you could have played just those, because there's something really relaxing about floating around, popping the balloons, not having to worry about enemies so much, but just worrying about your own skill. That's part of why, I'll talk about this in a little bit, but the balloon trip mode is my favorite mode in the game. I think most people kind of share that sentiment. The bonus stages, I found the trick is to just commit. Like, you can't hesitate in the bonus stage because a lot of times Balloon Fight is one of these games where if you go to the left of the screen, your same trajectory is followed to the right of the screen and vice versa. It's kind of like an infinite one screen sort of scenario that it's tailored to you. So when you're in the bonus stage and you've got balloons coming up, you know, I've had success flying continuously in one direction and kind of popping them as I go. I've also had success kind of sticking to, like, hopping from balloon to balloon wherever it may be coming out of. There is a little tip if you're playing on a high definition, you know, sort of setup. There's a thin line where you can actually see before the balloon comes out where the next one might be coming through. So you can take advantage of that. It's a little harder to see on the CRT, but it's still doable. Bless me. One of the easiest kind of strategies that you'll notice right away when you start playing this game is that the more enemies you pop in the beginning as they're just setting up, the easier it's going to be. And sometimes it's more helpful to start at the top and work your way down, even if it means offing less of them right away. In 2-player, it's definitely you want to start at the top for the most part, or you want to communicate verbally and say like, okay, I'm going to get the bottom ones and you go get the top ones, and just be wary that I'm going to be under you. But, you know, for a game that's so simple, it's really quite fantastic. The controls are so tight, and, you know, I've heard and read that this is because Iwata used decimal rather than integer calculations for where the player should be on the screen. And it's more than just the player, it's the enemies too. I mean, and you'll notice this if you fast forward the game, if you do record footage of it, you can see there's just like beautiful arcs and movements to the characters in this game. And it's pretty artistic. Like, given the limitations, it's extremely impressive, especially as a like near launch title, for the game to just look that gorgeous in motion. The sprites themselves aren't too impressive. The way that they move, it's just buttery smooth. Balloon Trip, though, is where I feel like the real action is. You're dodging the, I guess I could call some of them stars and some of them little blots of lightning. They look like the lightning that's fired from the clouds, but they don't really function like that. It feels more like you're just taking a trip among the stars almost, even though there's ocean below you, and the fish can still grab you. There's kind of a set pattern in the beginning that you memorize pretty quickly if you keep doing this, and it has that sort of like addictive sort of arcade feel to it that makes you want to keep trying. Once you get through that first little segment, it starts to get more randomized. There are things flying every which way. There are balloons and fixed locations. There are also the bubbles. Instead of just giving you points, they can freeze time. I found this to be helpful in some scenarios, but I would actually avoid the bubbles sometimes because it can be hard to memorize the directions that all of the different little lightning balls are going. And so if you do hit the bubble, it can kind of be a little counterintuitive sometimes because you'll forget and you kind of have to back up just to give yourself space to try and find a route through the chaos. So there's that. There's also the fact that if you hit 20 balloons in a row, I believe, you get color changes. And when the color of the balloons change, there's a point bonus that goes along with that. So if you're trying to get a really high score, it makes more sense to start off getting every balloon of like the pre-set balloons. And then it only takes a few off of that to reach orange balloons from green balloons. And then after orange, there's a reddish pink balloon. This one can be a little difficult. Sometimes right when you make it out of the gate and you get your orange balloons, there are some, I guess, just inconveniently placed balloons. And so it's easier to avoid those and just start over. It's okay to miss a few. You just have to hit 20 in a row. But then after you get the pink balloons, I think the best strategy is really not to try and hit every balloon, but to just be calm and patient and try and navigate your way through missing balloons when you know it's too hard. As soon as you die, everything plays back in front of you in slow motion. It's really engrossing, really engaging, really immersive, where it's funny that all of this can come from something from 1984. It's like you see it in slow motion as it's happening, as you're about to collide. It's just like, you just know that you could have done it differently. Like you should have gone a different way. You were a little too aggressive in getting a balloon or something of that nature. It's just, you just really hate to see it. Differently than Excitebike, the art style, at least on the box and the manual for this game, is much more cutesy, much more chibi. It reflects the artwork the sprite work that you'll find in the game a little more accurately. The music's fantastic. The balloon trip music is just out of this world. But the track that actually sticks with me the most, that might be my favorite from the game, is actually the game over music that plays once you have completely failed in the main mode. I've had a really good time with this game. Playing through it is a fantastic experience. And it doesn't really take long to experience all the game has to offer, but the more that you play it, the more that you learn about the mechanics and kind of like intuitively kind of feel yourself moving around the screen. You develop certain strategies just based on what's happened before and how you've gotten yourself into a pinch in the past. I guess I'll stop rambling now. But thanks for watching, I guess. Thanks. Pretty much.